The Chernobyl disaster, one of the worst nuclear accidents in history, occurred on April 26, 1986, but what really happened that day? The explosion at Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was a catastrophic event that would change the course of history. As the test to simulate the cooling of the reactor during a serious accident in blackout conditions began, the reactor's thermal power was reduced to between 700 megawatts and 1,000 megawatts. But this was only the beginning of a series of events that would lead to disaster. What triggered the power surge that would ultimately destroy the reactor? The test procedure was intended to measure the voltage provided by the coasting turbine, but the reactor had 1,661 individual fuel channels, requiring over 45 million liters of coolant per hour. The reactor had 3 backup diesel generators, but they took 60 to 75 seconds to reach full load. The emergency core cooling system was disabled during the test, a critical mistake that would have devastating consequences. As the test began, the reactor's power decreased to approximately 500 megawatts due to xenon poisoning, but the control room personnel were not aware of the danger that was unfolding. The night shift had very limited time to prepare for and carry out the experiment, and the reactor power control was switched from local automatic regulator to the automatic regulators. The AR1 activated, removing all 4 of AR1's control rods automatically, and the reactor power dropped to an unintended near-shutdown state, with a power output of 30 megawatts thermal or less. The control room personnel removed numerous control rods from the reactor to increase power, but this would only make things worse. As the reactor's power began to increase, the stage was set for a catastrophic event. The reactor was restored to 160 megawatts at 0:39, and the rod configuration was still within its normal limit, calculated as equivalent to having more than 15 rods inserted. But the reactor's power was increased further to 200 megawatts over the next 20 minutes, a critical mistake that would lead to the disaster. The reactor's output rose above 530 megawatts within 3 seconds, and a power spike occurred, causing the core to overheat. What happened next would be a turning point in the disaster. A steam explosion occurred, destroying the reactor casing and tearing off the upper biological shield. A second, more powerful explosion occurred 2 or 3 seconds after the first, dispersing the damaged reactor core. The second explosion had the power equivalent of 225 tons of TNT, and approximately 25% of the graphite blocks and overheated material from the fuel channels were expelled. The disaster was now unfolding at an unprecedented scale. The response to the disaster involved more than 500,000 personnel, and the cost was an estimated 18 billion rubles, about $85 billion in 2026. The disaster is the worst nuclear disaster and the most expensive disaster in history, with an estimated cost of $700 billion. A 10 kilometers exclusion zone was established 36 hours after the accident, and approximately 49,000 people were initially evacuated. But the full extent of the disaster was still not fully understood. The exclusion zone was later expanded to 30 kilometers, resulting in the evacuation of approximately 68,000 more people. 2 engineers were killed in the explosion, and 2 others were severely burned. 237 workers were hospitalized, with 134 showing symptoms of acute radiation syndrome, ARS. 28 workers died within 3 months, and 14 more workers died over the next decade. The human cost of the disaster was devastating. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus was completed in December 1986, and the Chernobyl new safe confinement was constructed around the old sarcophagus in 2016 to 2018. Cleanup is scheduled for completion by 2065. The disaster led to a significant increase in childhood thyroid cancer, with 6,000 cases occurring within the affected populations as of 2005. The long-term effects of the disaster are still being felt today. The nuclear fissile hypothesis, an alternative explanation for the disaster, was examined in 2017 by Lars-Erik de Geer, Christophersen, and Henningrode. The energy released by the second explosion was estimated to be at 40 billion joules, the equivalent of about 10 tons of TNT. Physicists from the VG Klopen Radium Institute measured anomalous high levels of xenon-135 in Chernobyl, a city 1,000 kilometers northeast of Chernobyl, 4 days after the explosion. The investigation into the disaster was complex and multifaceted. The Chernobyl disaster experiment began at 1 hour 23 minutes and 4 seconds, and 4 of the 8 main circulating pumps were to be powered by voltage from the coasting turbine. The diesel generators started and sequentially picked up loads by 1 hour 23 minutes and 43 seconds. The water flow rate decreased, leading to increased formation of steam voids in the coolant flowing through the fuel pressure tubes. An operator pressed the emergency AZ5 button to initiate a scram at 1 hour 23 minutes and 40 seconds, but it was too late. The reactor's output rose above 530 megawatts within 3 seconds, and a power spike occurred, causing the core to overheat. The control rods moved at 0.4 meters per second, taking 18 to 20 seconds to travel the full height of the core. A power spike occurred a few seconds into the scram, and the core overheated. The reactor's output jumped to around 30,000 megawatts thermal, 10 times its normal operational output. The second explosion had the power equivalent of 225 tons of TNT, and approximately 25% of the graphite blocks and overheated material from the fuel channels were expelled. The disaster was now unfolding at an unprecedented scale. The disaster occurred near Pripyat, Ukraine, and the response involved more than 500,000 personnel. The cost was an estimated 18 billion rubles, about $85 billion in 2026. The disaster is the worst nuclear disaster and the most expensive disaster in history, with an estimated cost of $700 billion. The Chernobyl disaster was a catastrophic event that would change the course of history. As we look back, we are still trying to understand the full extent of the disaster and its long-term effects.